And a very happy Thursday to you at 12:07 in the West. It's the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
John, for the past 5 years, the LA County Board of Supervisors has been trying to close Men's Central Jail. Well, they had an update this week at their Board of Supervisors meeting where the head of the committee to close Men's Central Jail wants to change the name of the committee so you don't know they're trying to close Men's Central Jail.
In my 4 months here, it's been clear that the name Jail Closure Implementation Team does not fully convey the broader holistic mission of the work. The new name, Community Safety Implementation Team.
Okay. This is always a tell here in the state of California. Whenever they name something, whatever they name it, the opposite is true. If they name something public safety, that means they're opening up the doors at the prison.
The new name, Community Safety Implementation Team.
The Community Safety Implementation Team, with the mission of closing Men's Central Jail without a replacement, putting all of the mental patients and the criminals who are serving prison sentences in the jail into the community to nonprofits.
And then they name it public safety.
The new name, Community Safety Implementation Team.
It's like when you call a call center and someone answers the phone. And you know they're sedentary. They sit in an office all day long. They're not really that active. And they always have names that kind of throw you a curveball. You get your credit card shut down, let's say, and you call the 800 number trying to resolve the issue. If you don't get someone in the Philippines, if you get someone stateside, they're always named something like Candy. But the only thing that they have in common with Candy is diabetes. Public safety. I have officially heard it all.
Interesting wrinkle, too, the attempt of the Board of Supervisors going all the way back to July of 2020 to close Men's Central Jail because Hilda Solis was feeling a little emotional back then, is that thanks to Prop 36, the jail population is now increased, not decreased, and it's got people like Janice Hahn wondering if it's even possible to close Men's Central Jail now.
Well, they're trying to do this for the same reason that Trump needs to build the wall. If you get the border secure by putting personnel on the border, that will last exactly as long as you're in office. Because you get replaced by a Democrat or a Bush type of Republican, and guess what? They're going to get rid of all those border agents, and then the border's going to go back to being complete chaos. But if you put up a physical barrier and you make it so that there's something there that does what you want it to do beyond when you leave office, then you've got something to work with. The LA County Board of Supervisors wants anarchy. They want the Rite Aid to get robbed every other hour. They want the fact that the MTA is not a safe thing to ride right now because they believe that the victims are the criminals and that the criminals are the victims. But they know that at some point we're going to find Jesus in all this, and we're going to change the way we do business in California. You're already starting to see seeds of that, with George Gascon being kicked out of office, Pamela Price being kicked out, Chesa Boudin, Prop 36 passing. The voters have already moved on from the anarchy. But if you shut down the jail and voters suddenly decide they want to get serious with crime, but you have no place to put them, then the Board of Supervisors gets to continue to dictate the policy, even though they've long been termed out of office.
The new name, Community Safety Implementation Team.
Good Lord. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Yesterday, we told you that California's Insurance Commissioner, Ricardo Lara, didn't bother to show up to an administrative hearing in Oakland. This was the hearing where State Farm was going to make their case for rate increases. These are rate increases that the administrative judge could make a recommendation on, but ultimately Ricardo Lara gets to decide. Unfortunately for ratepayers, he wasn't there to hear the arguments. But it probably didn't matter in the grand scheme of things, as he's indicated he's already made up his mind that he's going to improve the rate increases. Well, today, Randy, we learned a little bit more about Ricardo Lara's relationship with the insurance industry.
Oh, how fun is this? A huge shout out to Josh Cohen of the San Francisco Standard, who has put out a piece. Insurance chief lives large on campaign cash as homes burn.
This guy isn't eating at Applebee's.
Ricardo Lara, apparently, for the past few years, has had a campaign fund to run for lieutenant governor that he uses that money to go to the fanciest of fancy dinners in the Bay Area.
These restaurants that he's going to are so fancy and have so many different kinds of glasses and so many different kinds of plates and so many different kinds of forks and knives on the table, he barely has enough room for his elbows.
Listen to how this piece starts. The sun had already set over the grand Frank Gehry's skyscraper complex in downtown Los Angeles as Ricardo Lara sat down for a dinner at San Laurel, a flagship restaurant of famed chef Jose Andres that offers sparkling views of the city. Lara and a guest started with an Americano and a Diet Coke. Over the next 2.5 hours, Lara and company went to order delicacies like jamón ibérico, pan con tomate, sea urchin, lobster salpacion, and wild mushrooms, a rack of lamb, Andres' signature gambas al zahara, a $16 grapefruit, and chocolate mousse.
Wait a minute. A $16 grapefruit?
It's downtown L.A.
I wouldn't pay $16 for a grapefruit if Old Man Sunkiss picked it himself.
Lubricating the $700 culinary adventure were 2 bottles of La Reina Abrariño, a white wine from the Rías Baixas region of Spain. This may sound rather decadent, but Lara wasn't personally on the hook. He charged $234 of the tab to a little-known campaign committee he created 2 years ago to run for lieutenant governor. His special guest picked up the balance. Who was the special guest? Oh, it happened to be the head of an insurance company.
Keep in mind, as insurance commissioner, he has pledged not to take any money from the insurance industry. He got caught doing that. It became a big scandal, and he was trying to be real cute about it by having the employees and the wives be the ones that wrote the checks. After he got caught, he had to give some of that money back. Now he's termed out of office, and he says he's running for lieutenant governor, even though there's no active campaign going on. And he is soliciting donations to that campaign, and he's transferring money from his insurance campaign into his lieutenant governor campaign. That becomes effectively a slush fund where if he says, oh, no, I'm paying for my meals, no. You're not paying for your meals. Your campaign contributors are. And who do you think those are?
The guy who picked up 2/3 of that $700 check is the CEO of Farmers Insurance, which included the 2 $90 bottles of Spanish white wine.
Is Spanish wine that expensive?
Usually it's not. Usually Spanish wine is very affordable and delicious. But if you're going to a very, very, very fancy Spanish tapas restaurant in downtown L.A., I'm sure there's quite the upcharge on the vino.
I was going to say, if they sell it at Trader Joe's, it can't be that pricey.
Believe you me, my mother-in-law drinks almost exclusively $10 Albariños that you can get at Albertsons.
Uh-oh.
She likes it.
Is that Bartles or James?
You can get very good Spanish wine for very affordable prices. I see it at Total Wine all the time. This $90 Albariño is the thing you order when you know you're not paying.
Yes. That's because you know you're running up the tab, you're running up the score as much as possible because you can.
So an investigation by the San Francisco Standard found that Ricardo Lara, who's got less than 2 years left in his final term as an insurance commissioner, has been using a shell campaign committee for this non-existent campaign for lieutenant governor to pay for nearly $30,000 in meals and drinks in some of the country's fanciest restaurants and bars. Almost a third of these charges were listed as campaign meetings.
And keep in mind, this guy isn't even in the country that often because he's going to all of these conferences in Asia and South America and Europe and Canada in the finest hotels, in the finest hotspots all over the globe.
And now we know when he's not able to charge his bill to the insurance companies themselves, he's paying for it with a BS campaign fund. Who, by the way, who donated to Ricardo Lara's crooked campaign fund outside of, I don't know, the insurance industry?
I love the fact that as Rome burns, literally, and the insurance industry is melting down, this guy is living like Ellie Mae Clampett.
He has transferred more than $227,000 into his committee from insurance commissioner to this committee for lieutenant governor, and he's using that money to live large.
There was one bill, I don't know if you saw that, from a restaurant in Sacramento that was for over $1,000.
Last year, Lara charged 2 meals at Piatti, a high-end Italian restaurant in Sacramento. The check for the April 17th, 2024 dinner came to almost $1,002. The 8 people at the, quote, campaign strategy meeting ordered 5 martinis, 2 other cocktails, 8 glasses of wine, a separate bottle of Honig Sauv Blanc, and almost half the items on the dinner menu.
Okay, I'm looking at the tab for this particular meal. They had 1 Tito's. That was $16. They charged $16 for a Tito's in Sacramento.
Drinking in California is pretty much unaffordable.
And then the grapefruit, I guess it was a Tito's grapefruit. That was a separate thing. 1 hot tea, 1 ciabatta bread, 3 cucumber coolers. I assume that's alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
4 GI Honig Sauvignon Blanc.
That's an okay Sauv Blanc.
3 Belvedere martinis, 1 Tito's, that was a martini, 1 marinated olives, 1 cured meats and cheeses, 2 meatballs, add 1 meatball, so I guess 3, 1 Paloma Italiana, 1 soda, 1 GL Lioco Pinot Noir, 1 Brussels sprouts. Well, at least someone was healthy.
You know, Ricardo, you're really not supposed to keep going back and forth between red and white wine. That's how you get the headaches.
3 Justin Cabernet Sauvignon, 1 arugula salad, 3 king salmon, 1 spring risotto, 1 bowl of soup, 1 New York steak, 1... How is he not like 800 pounds? 1 wood-fired pork chop, 1 bucatini, whatever the hell that is.
I know, by the way, how he's keeping that weight off, but I can't say it on the air.
No, you can't. We don't need to make any more contributions to that slush fund. Another Sauvignon Blanc, a coffee, 2 apple bread puddings. Ooh, that sounds good. I love bread pudding. 1 flourless chocolate cake, 1 tiramisu, 1... How many desserts? Vanilla gelato, decaf coffee, espresso martini, and a 3% surcharge.
And who are these 8 people working on his non-existent campaign for lieutenant governor?
I have a feeling they were with him to see DJ Kitty Glitter.
Now, of course, this isn't anything new in the state of California. What was it last year when we found out about Assemblyman Matt Haney's little scheme where he was using campaign money to have fundraisers at Niners and Warriors games?
Oh, yeah, and Broadway shows and NHL games. I think Cal Berkeley. He went to all the great games.
This is what happens in Sacramento when you have no oversight. Because even the Fair Practices Political Commission, which is supposed to be a watchdog on campaigns, they didn't even want to comment on this story because they should be the ones to find this out, not the San Francisco Standard.
And where is the LA Times? Shouldn't the LA Times, in theory, as the paper that's covering, the fires and the insurance crisis surrounding it, shouldn't they be turning stones over in the state insurance commissioner's office when they hear day after day, time after time, that office is extending virtually no help to homeowners?
Well, if they started investigating Ricardo Lara, then they're not going to get access to Ricardo Lara, so he can go on the LA Times and say that it's white mansplaining if John Garamendi tells him he's not doing his job.
But he doesn't talk to the media anyway. What are you losing if you piss him off?
But you got to understand, he was the very, 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 very first LGBTQ insurance commissioner. That's important. He's a special person.
This is how you know you're being taken for a ride. They did the same thing with Shang Tao. When she was elected mayor of Oakland, CBS National did a whole profile on her, and all they talked about was how historic it was for a Hmong woman to be elected mayor of a big city.
It was all about her background, her family's history, and the fact that she was a survivor of domestic abuse. Nothing about her qualities to be running a city, which she had none.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And when Ricardo Lara was elected insurance commissioner, someone who is, I'm not going to call him corrupt yet, but let's just say that he's unethical. We're on firm footing with that one, aren't we?
Oh, I think DJ Kitty Glitter can attest to that.
Okay, so we elected someone who knows nothing about insurance, who is completely, provably unethical, and all your news told you was that he would be the first gay insurance commissioner.
That's what mattered.
They cover everything that's not relevant, and they ignore anything that matters. And this is why this state is run the way it is. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And if you want to listen to us tomorrow morning, because I know I'll be in the car at 7 a.m. heading to Long Beach, because there's going to be some closed roads down there because of the Grand Prix. And I'm looking for something to listen to. Randy, I can listen to us.
You can. Just search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You can travel back to a simpler time when we talked about Shang Tao every hour.
That's right. I like that. That was amazing.
Well, we just told how Ricardo Lara, the state's insurance commissioner, likes to be wined and dined at the finest restaurants in the state.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
And by the finest restaurants in the state, I mean restaurants where you don't have to order your dinner through a clown's nose and nothing on the menu or off the menu is served animal style. Well, he missed a meeting. He missed an administrative hearing that took place in Oakland where State Farm is looking to raise your rates substantially. He's the decider. He's the one that gets to determine if they get their rate increase, and he wasn't there to hear the arguments. But according to reports from people who were there and did listen to what State Farm had to say, the evidence that State Farm actually presented the judge in this administrative hearing is being called into question.
Not only that, but they tried to bring on an expert witness who has a conflict of interest because she's currently contracted with the Department of Insurance.
Is that so?
For more, here is, and by the way, no station has done a better job of investigating Ricardo Lara than ABC7 in the Bay Area. So we give them a lot of props for that. Here is another report from KGO.
Well, State Farm is one step closer to making their case to raise property insurance rates for millions of California policyholders. But new testimony revealed today is casting doubt on the data. As of right now, the company slightly lowered their rate hike request of homeowners from 22% down to 17%.
Although they increased the one for rental property owners to 38%.
Oh, they're going to get everything they want.
7 on your side, Stephanie Sierra is following the latest from the Department of Insurance headquarters in Oakland.
State Farm's first rate hike hearing in a decade was met with controversy over a potential conflict of interest. The insurance company's expert witness, Nancy Watkins.
We found out that she was basically hired to consult with the department on formulating regulations that are favorable to the industry, which would include the cost of what's called reinsurance that companies have to buy.
Watkins.
So State Farm and the Department of Insurance have the same expert?
Okay, you do realize in any other aspect of life, you go to jail for that?
This is a state with no oversight. That's why this is totally normalized.
If you are, let's say, a local city councilman and you write legislation that would provide redevelopment funds to developers, and then you turn around and say to the developers, oh, hi, you can hire me to be your consultant to write the grant for you to make sure you get the money, that's illegal. You can't do that. You can't be on both sides of the table.
We see this all the time. Look at the CPUC. The California Public Utilities Commission is made up of people Gavin appointed that used to work at PG&E that do nothing but rubber stamp rate hikes for PG&E, including the latest one where they're literally just saying, we want to increase our stock price.
This is what happens in a one-party state. And I'll tell you where this is commonplace. It's commonplace with school districts where public employees not only get civil service protection, but they get collective bargaining. So the unions determine who sits on the school board. They pick the school board because they're the ones that spend the most money in those races. And then they sit across the table when the contracts come up and they negotiate with them. You get to pick the people you negotiate with, and frequently they even come from your organization. And then you end up with crappy schools and kids that don't know how to read and kids that don't know how to write, and no one knows how to do math, but they all know what sex they are that particular day.
Watkins currently has a consulting contract with the Department of Insurance where she not only has access to confidential information, but is specifically assessing rates for State Farm.
And she was State Farm's expert witness?
Okay, if you're a ratepayer in California and you get your bill in the mail and your bill explodes from where it used to be, which was already high, and you wonder how in the hell that happened, this is how it happened.
The California Department of Insurance is contracting out with a consultant that's also being paid by State Farm. Do you want to know how we got here? This is how we got here.
The judge denied State Farm's appeal to keep Watkins as a witness.
We're really worried about wildfire risk in general.
Burlingame resident Richard McLaughlin lost his childhood home in the Palisades fire.
It seems like State Farm is presenting that they're in a dire financial situation, and they're trying to fix that by both injecting money from their parent organization and also by increasing rates.
How much is the naming rights to that stadium in Arizona?
That's a good question.
And they haven't really justified that mix.
How much ratepayer money did they put into the stock market that they lost in the last couple of years?
And how much did they put into the Super Bowl ad?
Initially, State Farm asked for a roughly 22% rate hike for homeowners, which dropped to 17%.
And remember, it was originally 30 last year before the fires.
They keep getting rate increase after rate increase from Ricardo Lara.
State Farm's expert witness, an economist the company hired, claims the 17% figure is what State Farm needs for financial stability. Yet he also testified he didn't actually calculate those numbers.
Okay. I think I told you. I got stuck on jury duty for a month.
Oh, we know.
Oh, yes. And one of the things that they do, because it doesn't matter which side you end up voting with, you end up being irritated with all of them because they're all trying to manipulate you. And they're all playing games and using tricks that are meant to manipulate how you see the case, how you see the evidence, etc. And one of the things that they do is they bring in all of these expert witnesses who aren't even passingly familiar with the details of the case. And they're all buffoons. And they spend 90% of the time talking about their credentials. Well, we've got Dr. So-and-so who has a PhD in psychology and a master's degree in psychology, and she's a certified counselor, and she's got a bachelor's degree in sociology, and she's taught classes at UC Irvine for this many years. And then they ask her something about the case, and she goes, well, I haven't even read anything about it. I'm just here to talk about the theory. And then you go back into the room, and all of these rubes that you're sitting on the jury with talk about her as if she is the pillar of information, as if she's some kind of legitimate expert. And I go, this woman didn't even read the synopsis, let alone know the details.
I don't even want to know what kind of experts you get for the trial you were at.
Yeah, you really don't want to know. But the same thing is going on here. Well, this guy's an economist. He's got a PhD in economics. He's got a master's degree in business administration, yada, yada, yada. But he doesn't actually run the numbers to figure out if what he's saying is true.
Every aspect of this hearing just gets proven again and again that this is just theater. This is all for show. None of this matters. Ricardo Lara is approving whatever State Farm wants because Ricardo Lara is in State Farm's pocket.
And he figures if he trots some guy out there with a beard and a pipe and a corduroy coat that people will believe him.
Yet he also testified he didn't actually calculate those numbers.
There could be any number of calculations that are below 17% that would also be reasonable, and our actuary actually did those calculations, and they range anywhere from a negative to very low, like in the...
So when you actually run the numbers, it's very possible State Farm does not need this rate increase.
Well, there you go. I'm sure Ricardo Lara will look into that, though.
Maybe like 5% range.
In a statement, State Farm wrote, "We are looking forward to reinforcing the need for an emergency interim rate to help State Farm General Insurance Company continue to operate in California for the long term."
It does seem that State Farm...
Maybe we can get a regulation that if they get this rate hike, which we know they're going to get because Ricardo Lara has no reason to say no, they are no longer allowed to run ads that say, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
It does seem that State Farm is in trouble and does need the rate increase or something like the rate increase. But my broader frustration is with what I see as just such poor management by the California Department of Insurance.
The judge will issue...
Okay, let's just look at this in the context of everything else around us. One of the things that has happened since Donald Trump took office is inflation is going down. Look at the price of airline tickets. Look at the price of groceries. Look at the price of what you're paying now compared to what you used to pay. It's not just what we're reading in the paper that says that inflation is going down. You experience it on a regular basis. Things aren't as expensive as they were during the peak of inflation, and it's certainly not exploding the way that it used to. If anything, rates should stabilize or go down, but that's not what's happening. They want rate increases, and they want them from you.
Have you ever heard of a rate going down? They don't do that.
No.
The judge will issue a proposed order within 10 days with his recommendation, and Commissioner Lara holds the power to make the final decision. Reporting in Oakland, Stephanie Sierra, ABC 7 News.
And I'm sure that he will not at all be thinking about those fancy dinners that were paid for by the CEOs of insurance companies when he's making this decision.
No, and I'm telling you, as we get closer to the end of his term, that man is going to be dangerous because at that point he gives 0 Fs. And if he's done with politics, which is what it's increasingly looking like is the case, then he doesn't care what you think either. And if he doesn't care what you think, and he doesn't plan on running for another office at some point in the future, he is going to sell everything that's not nailed down.
Can we forward that San Francisco Standard story to Bill Asaley?
We should. Let's go to Dale in Long Beach. Dale, hello.
Yeah, John, I'm going to break it down for you. Ricardo Lara is not a popular guy. He's not able to fundraise a lot of money from the average person. His reelection campaign proves that. He's going to need money from the insurance company and the oil company. He wants to be the governor someday, of course, even if he doesn't admit it. And I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm sure he has aspirations.
Well, at this point, who would vote for this guy?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I was like, but he, nonetheless, someday in the back of his mind, I'm sure he wants to be the governor, and he's going to need that money. I think he went to the Chuck Quackenbush School of Insurance Commissioners.
If this guy runs for governor, he'd get the vote from the guy that runs Farmers that went to dinner with him. He'd get the vote from the guy that runs State Farm, and he'd get the vote from the woman with the big boobs on the billboard.
Thanks, John. Have a good one.
Thank you for the call, Sarah. All right. At the top of the show, Randy, you mentioned all of the drama surrounding the closing of Men's Central Jail in Los Angeles.
This is something that the Board of Supervisors voted on in July of 2020 during the hot, crazy COVID George Floyd summer. And it was supposed to be done within a year. But luckily, the county moves very slowly. And also the idea of closing Men's Central Jail doesn't make any sense. But at least they changed the name of the committee to close the jail.
The new name, Community Safety Implementation Team.
So I listened to this hearing as they talked about all their plans to close Men's Central Jail, which includes depopulating the jail because you can't close it if people are in it. So you have to find other places for these people to go, which is just a massive version of defund the police because they're going to take all this money from the sheriff's department that runs the jail and give it to all these nonprofits that know how to do diversion programs. It's all nonsense. But what was fascinating was the guy running the meeting, talking to the Board of Supervisors, mentioned how Prop 36 might have thrown a giant hindrance into their plans because Prop 36 is increasing the jail population.
Prop 36 has had an immediate impact. The jail receives approximately 35 people a week held on Prop 36 related charges.
35 people a week in the county are getting arrested and charged on Prop 36. So that's either a 3-time repeat retail theft, a 3-time drug offense, or a fentanyl dealer that's going to get charged with murder.
So it's going to fill up the jails again, which means we need cell space.
On December 26, 2024, there were 12 people in custody on such offenses. On March 17th of 2025, there was 403.
That is actual progress right there.
That's right. All of these people who are being arrested and put in jail for this are people who were robbing you and robbing retail establishments and making it so that we have to buy our shampoo through bulletproof glass.
And this led Janice Hahn to ask the question, is it even possible to close Men's Central Jail now that the jail population is increasing with laws that they can't get around?
Let me ask you what you think Prop 36 has, and we heard the warnings about Prop 36. We heard them loud and clear that probably would increase our jail population. But
I mean, that was the point.
Yeah. We want to put those people behind bars so they're not robbing our Rite Aid.
Now, the ones that are addicted to drugs, they'll be offered treatment. If they take the treatment, that felony goes away. If they refuse the treatment, jail for you.
The public, for some reason, overwhelmingly supported it.
So, for some reason?
Yeah, get with the program, dummy.
The public, for some reason, overwhelmingly supported it. They felt like they wanted a little more accountability. How do you think Prop 36 is going to impact your mission to our mission to close Men's Central Jail? Will it delay this process? Does it make it impossible now to ever close Men's Central Jail?
I would sure hope so.
We need a place to put them, that's for sure.
So I would say it depends on the trajectory. Right now, like I said, there's about 38 people a week being added to the jail population. So any addition without subtraction,
we're kind of going
delays,
in the wrong direction.
We're going in the wrong direction.
Because, of course, the goal of this committee for the last 5 years is to let everyone they can out of jail.
No, we're going in the right direction. We're identifying the bad apples, and we're separating them from the rest of us.
But I do think, it is early on. We are talking with partners. I know the court's looking at it. I know the sheriff's department's looking at it. Public defenders are working really hard, as always, as they do every day.
Gee, I can tell who he's in the can with.
Yeah, no kidding.